Cardale Jones. I just had to do the Gus Johnson because I feel like a play-by-play commentator or a color commentator with this setup back here. It's pretty cool. I might want to move my camera around more because stuff like this is cool. But let me actually get into the topic of the video. Okay, so I've been down here in Mobile this week, and I've been spending a lot of time getting to meet people who cover other teams. It's always a great part of doing an event like this, and talking to them about their thoughts on certain quarterback situations and everything else. And it's made me think about the Browns quarterback options. And I just want to have a deeper conversation about the quarterback position, what the Browns options truly are, what are the consequences of some of the choices they can take? How do you balance short-term benefit versus long-term stagnation? And that, I think, is the biggest thing to me, right? Because I feel a lot of Browns fans, and I understand it, want to have some kind of solve to this quarterback issue. Right now, the quarterback position is a huge question mark. And because the quarterback position is such a huge question mark, it makes us nervous about everything going forward with this team. And admittedly, the Browns, we haven't had the greatest quarterback since 2018. But quarterback has not been an open question in the way that it is right now since 2018. It's been a while. So there's a lot of energy to just not want to have that question on the roster. And if you go for something short-term, like Kirk Cousins, like Justin Fields or something like that, right? A veteran who you think could be good for a year, that might be a short-term solution. But what are the long-term consequences of that, right? Like, for example, a lot of us, and myself included, I want the Browns to win as many games as possible next year. I think the Browns can if they get a decent enough quarterback in here who doesn't turn the ball over a ton, who's not an embarrassment to watch. I think the Browns can win 10, 11 games. But what are the consequences of that? Right? I talked about before in the video the consequences of drafting somebody at 2 whose ceiling does not put you on par with Pat Mahomes and everybody else. Because what if you win 11 games, you get the 15th pick in 2026, and that puts you out of range? So now, instead of asking yourself the question of, like, how high is the ceiling for these quarterbacks, you have to ask yourself, hey, if we are successful next year and we win X amount of games and we get the 15th or 20th pick in the draft, is the quarterback that will be available to us in 2026 going to be any better than Shador, than Cam Ward? Or is it better to go ahead, use the number 2 overall pick on a premium player like a Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter, and then get your Shador or Cam Ward level prospect late in the first round next year? Or do you see somebody, let's say Kate Klubnik, Drew Aller, right? Is it worth it to wait next year and potentially put yourself in a position where if Jacksonville has a top 10 pick, you have to give them your next 3 first-round picks to go move up in the top 10 to get your guy? What are the consequences of winning games next year? How many games should we want to win? Like, if the Browns have quarterback as an open question going into next season, what should they want to do as far as winning games goes? I don't have a great answer for that. The Browns quarterback situation right now is muddy, and no matter how you split it, you can draft up a bad situation for the team long term if they draft the quarterback at 2. You can draft up a bad situation long term for the team if the Browns don't take a quarterback. Well, do take a quarterback at 2. Don't take a quarterback at 2. You can draw up the same thing. And I think that is the issue. There's so much uncertainty. What do the Browns do going forward? What do you do when you have a problem and there's no answer? Like, it's a tough spot to be in, but that's the spot that the Browns are in. They have a problem at quarterback. They don't have an answer. Nobody has an answer because this draft doesn't have an answer. You hope there's answers in 2026. There seems like a better chance for there to be answers in 2026, but you don't know if that's going to be true. Kate Klubnik could have a stinker of a year next year at Clemson. Drew Aller could have a regression year And we're talking about Carson Beck going at the top of the draft. It can shake out a lot of different ways. And I think for the Browns, being nervous about that, trying to play the guessing game of what could happen if this does happen and what do we do there, and trying to predict everything, that's always a losing battle. So for the Browns, the best thing I can suggest, the thing that I have seen work the most is, hey, just focus on trying to win games. That has been what works in these kind of situations where there's much uncertainty. Try to win the most games as possible. Maybe you're successful at winning games. Maybe you're not. Maybe you have to fire your coach and GM next year. Maybe you don't. Maybe you have a top 10 pick next year. Maybe you don't. Maybe somebody offers you a first round next year to move back in the draft or move up in the draft. Maybe they don't. But you're not going to know. You can't plan for shit you don't know. What you can plan is for trying to win as many games as possible. And if you try to win as many games as possible, let's say you win 10 games, then that might open up other opportunities for you that you didn't see. Maybe you become more attractive for a quarterback who wants out of a situation, right? Let's say Matt Stafford or Geno Smith, or, we could just guess a quarterback in a situation that they don't love. I mean, let's imagine Justin Herbert wants out of LA because he's frustrated. Well, then you become a better landing spot. We don't know how the quarterback landscape is going to shape up. What we do know is when we look at Shedeur, there isn't the same consensus around him in the scouting community that there usually is amongst top picks that work out, right? The amount of scrutiny on Shedeur is similar to the amount of scrutiny that was on Daniel Jones, on Mac Jones being a top pick, right? On the ideal of Mitchell Trubisky, guys who went early and not necessarily worked out. Now, there have been guys who people have been skeptical about that have worked out, but the vast majority of these prospects that go early without that level of consensus, right, that aren't routinely in the top 10 of respected draft boards of people who do this work year in and year out, the track record of those guys working out is very low. And, yeah, maybe Shedeur hits, but then even if Shedeur hits, what's his ceiling? And what's the odds of Shedeur hitting? Then you go with Cam Ward, right? Same kind of conversation you got to have there. I just don't think that these prospects at quarterback are a good enough bet to feel comfortable betting the next 2 years of your franchise on. And that's really what you're doing at quarterback, right? You got to ask yourself and leverage that question. Is it worth betting the next 2 years of draft classes? Because you draft the quarterback this year, you're not drafting a quarterback in 2026. Even if you stink, you're not drafting a quarterback in 2027, even if you stink. So if you're the Browns, you got to ask yourself, is this worth not being in those draft classes? Is this worth not being able to attack that? I don't think it is, right? If Kevin falls in love with one of these guys and says, I need to get this guy, then maybe you consider it. But the amount of consensus around these guys just isn't what it was. And I know we can point out guys that people didn't think were good or this and that. But the fact is, you could tell me about how Lamar failed at 32. Shedeur Sanders is not Lamar Jackson. Like, he doesn't play the same style of football that caused Lamar Jackson to fall in the draft, right? He wasn't this unicorn that we didn't know what to do with at the time. He's a pretty traditional pocket passer, right? The same thing's true with Pat Mahomes. The guys who people keep citing to me as, oh, well, they went later. Why can't this be the same thing? It's because Shedeur plays a pretty traditional style. So if Shedeur was really that great, he would be the consensus one guy on a lot of boards, but he's not. And Cam Ward, he's a little bit more of a unicorn, but he's not really like that much of a unicorn either, right? We've seen guys like Cam Ward come out before. I think the comp for him right now is Zach Wilson. So these guys aren't falling in the category of slipping in through the cracks or, not being fully evaluated or, kind of having these stigmas against them. It's not really it. I mean, you could argue Shedeur has a little bit of a stigma against him because of the whole Sanders family thing. And I think there's something to that. But even the people who don't mind the Sanders stuff that I've talked to still don't have that level of consensus about him. But if you don't go at quarterback at 2, you end up in a situation where you're going to have to just kind of, and here's the thing about not taking quarterback at 2, because this is the main thing that I hear people say when I say I don't think they should do it, is, well, who do you want to play quarterback? Like, they're asking me this, expecting me to come up with some kind of great solution that everybody feels great about. And the reality is, if you don't want to take a quarterback at 2, you're going to have to kind of just suck your teeth and deal with quarterback for a year or 2. And it might be Jacoby Brissett out there. It might be Kirk Cousins out there. It might be, not the most desirable quarterback situation for a year, but I'm willing to go through that and deal with the consequences of that, knowing that in 2026, worst case scenario, we stink, we could get a quarterback. Best case scenario, we win a bunch of games and we feel like we're a quarterback away, so we can trade a bunch of picks to get a quarterback. So I think that's better for the team going forward. Just get the elite player at 2 and worry about quarterback next year, because maybe the Browns go with Kirk Cousins. They don't win a bunch of games. They end up with the top 10 pick. They just get their guy. Boom. It's perfect like that, right? There was pressure for Houston, for example, in 2022, once they traded Deshaun Watson to go get a quarterback in the top 10. They were the team that was mocked to go get Kenny Pickett. They just lost Deshaun. Go get Kenny. They resisted that urge. They waited till 2023. They got C.J. Stroud with the help from the Browns, obviously, but they got C.J. Stroud, and it ended up working out for them. Sometimes you can't accept the first solution that somebody throws at you. You got to be willing to see what the cards can be down the line, and this is a hand that I don't want to play, right? I want to fold this hand at quarterback. But let me know what you guys think, right? If you were able to watch some of the Senior Bowl stuff, did anything that you see in Mobile change your mind about quarterback, or anything in the post-draft stuff, the interviews with Shador? Is your mind being changed on this? Or if you think that one of these prospects are truly generational and the scouts have it wrong, explain to me in football terms with examples of games of why you think that's the case, right? Because I've watched a lot of tape on these quarterbacks, and I can't get myself there. And look, I want the Browns to solve the quarterback problem as soon as possible, but I think we have to accept the reality that the Browns' best option at quarterback is not solving this problem this year. And that's tough. That's just tough. It's never good to go into a season feeling like that, but that just might have to be what it is, that we're just not going to have a long-term solution this year, and next year is the year to find a long-term solution. Because I want what's best for the team going forward, and best case scenario, you draft the quarterback, and your team that gets eliminated by Lamar, by Joe Burrow, by Patrick Mahomes for the next 8 years. And that sounds good right now, but after the second time it happens, y'all going to be furious. And I think I want the Browns to try to get Myles Garrett a championship. I think the best way to do it is to make sure that the quarterback you swing on is somebody you think can put you on par with that guy. And I think you'll be better off long term, right? Again, let's look at some of these examples of teams who have found franchise quarterbacks. They didn't reach in bad draft classes, right? The Texans didn't reach for a quarterback in a bad draft class. They got C.J. Stroud the next year. The Washington, right? They could have reached for a quarterback in a bad draft class and tried to just get their guy. They could have took Kenny Pickett in 2022. They waited. They got Jaden Daniels. They had to suffer for a little bit, right? They had to play Jacoby Brissett and Sam Howell for a year, but they got their guy. And now things are different for them. And I know everybody sees Jaden Daniels and think, oh, you just draft the rookie quarterback, you're going to have that result. But the reason they have that result isn't because they drafted a rookie quarterback. It's because they drafted Jaden Daniels. And Jaden Daniels was that level of prospect. I just think if you're the Browns, it's worth it to wait and get this right instead of rush and get it at best. That's my thoughts. Let me know what y'all think in the comment section down below. Appreciate y'all for joining me. This is going to be my last video. Well, I don't know when this is coming out, but it's going to be the last thing I record down in Mobile. I want to thank you guys for making this opportunity possible. I want to thank you guys for watching and commenting every day. This is awesome, man. That I get to do this for a living. This is awesome. I want to thank you guys so much. But y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.